Aaron.
Hi, my name is Billy. Today we're going to be talking about the differences in broadcasting between the English Premier League and the National Football League, so the soccer league in England and the football league in the United States.
Okay, so these two sports, they're both well known in their respective countries. We will be discussing the positives and the negatives which are associated with the sport and how media is connected with sport, and also we'll be discussing the recommendations that may be useful for the organisations to better their viewership. So technology is growing, and you can see that through all the social media platforms that are coming up, so like Twitter, like Facebook and Tumblr, and these all have an effect or have a part in sports and how it's broadcast. So this also allows more opportunity for the sports to be broadcast in a variety of ways, which will maximise the viewership and monopoly for these organisations.
So as Aaron just mentioned, there are a variety of ways broadcasting can be done. So for the English Premier League and NFL actually do have quite differing styles of broadcast, and we will be going into what those differences are, the positives and negatives of those styles, and the effects it has on not only viewership and money, but also how it might affect like growth of the sport in the country, how it affects participation and development of the sport. And I think with that we'll get right into it.
So with NFL and their structure, they try to maximise viewership based on the variety of networks that provides games. This can be perceived as a positive, but also a negative. Having these amount of networks can be beneficial for people that can't watch it or has the ability to watch it back on a different network if sees fit.
In comparison to that, the English Premier League has always sort of existed in terms of broadcasting as a monopoly to the media company Sky Sports. So Sky Sports have always broadcast the majority of English Premier League games, and because of this, fans always have just one way to watch the game, and this can be a positive because it leads to a consistent viewing experience, but also because of this there's not a lot of variety, and since Sky Sports have the monopoly, there aren't any free-to-air games for people to enjoy, so that limits the amount of people who might be able to watch, and it might deter people from the sport.
Yeah, so NFL, for any sport actually, there's contracts that come with media. And I found an interesting fact within the 1998 to 2005 where a contract fee of $2.2 billion with CBS was used for a free-to-air service. It is costing NFL more money than the EPL with their subscription contract because the Premier League broadcasts on subscription service, which is costing less, and it's subsidised by the subscription fee that the customers purchase.
So with Sky Sports, since they have the majority of EPL games, they've always been able to recoup their money by the same way the NFL does it, with subscriptions and with advertising and things like that. With the EPL though, they sell their media deals in packages of 3 years, and so since 2001 they've been doing this, and each time Sky Sports wants to buy the rights to it, it costs them like around $1 billion each time they do it. So because of this, the English Premier League does make a large amount of money off of it, but also Sky Sports does manage to eventually make a profit off of the deals as well.
As just a point on Billy's is that there is a similarity in certain sports, and that's the packages that they have deals with for the media. So with NFL, in the past, they've done 8-year contracts with the services. Only recently that they've done a 9-year contract because of how enhanced the technology is. So NFL is one of 4 major sports in the US compared to Europe, where soccer is predominantly the favourite. This allows costing to be consistent.
Just to touch on the point of Aaron's, the reason the EPL sells it in packages of 3 as opposed to 5 is because there are a lot of media companies trying to break into the market. So the English Premier League knows that the more regularly they sell the packages, the more able they are to raise the prices and grow the market. And the reason that the English Premier League is so consistent with its viewership is because it is the largest league of soccer in Europe, and Europe is the most popular sport over there. So they know they'll always have consistent viewership, and they don't really have that much competition from other sports, as opposed to the US, which has basketball, ice hockey, and things like that.
Yeah, so with the US, they've got quite a spread market. So they've got different sports which are quite popular in their respective areas, but NFL is probably one of the biggest ones in America. So with this market, it's quite large because there's a couple of sports. But with EPL, as Billy has said, is that even though there's so many people trying to get the signature of, airing those matches, that there's only one that everyone has to go to actually watch.
Yeah. So because they have this monopoly on the sport, and they sort of have the freedom to do what they will with their broadcasting, the league is exclusively pay-per-view. There's no way to actually view English Premier League free to air. And this has sort of become a trend with the English Premier League. To use Australia as an example, we have Optus, and the only reason Optus give away a game to the SBS a week is because we have obligations to do that in Australia to help grow the sport, whereas England, what they do is they broadcast domestic cups, and like the FA Cup, the Capital One Cup, free to air. They also provide the England national team matches free to air, and UEFA Champions League. There are a few ways to watch those free to air. So they get around that by providing free to air TV for these other competitions while keeping the English Premier League exclusive. They want to do that because that is the most profitable one.
Yeah, so expanding on that, is that when the teams are on TV, that they're only viewing certain games for free, and so with the difference between NFL is that they've got every game free to everyone. So that's just a comparison to that one and how different the structures are. Because of the variety of networks that they have, that they might as well just make it free. But that, as I've said and mentioned, that it is a positive but can also be a negative, and I'll mention that further on down.
So, as I was saying before, the English government is happy to let the Premier League do what they will with their broadcasting because they get around it with making other things free to air. Because of this, the English Premier League is sort of stale with its growth, and what I mean by this is because there aren't any free to air games, it has trouble introducing newer people to the sport. So like no one's just gonna put on the TV, find a game, and like enjoy themselves, because they're catering to people who are already football fans, because football fans are the ones who are going to go seek out the subscription and pay for it, whereas people who aren't already fans are never just going to randomly buy a subscription for no reason if they don't already enjoy the league. And the reason why the FA Cup, the Capital One Cup don't achieve this is because teams will often field weaker teams in these competitions because they're not as important as the English Premier League. So teams like Manchester United, Chelsea, those big clubs, they don't field their superstars in these smaller competitions. They save them for the Premier League. And that is why it's sort of a negative that they don't do any Premier League games free to air, because those would definitely attract much more neutral viewers as opposed to the FA Cup, which is a lot smaller.
Now, just on the point of viewership, NFL's gaming format is, it's got like a playoff feel to it, obviously. The way they do it is that the uncertainty is there. So everyone likes to watch the game because of the quality of the match, the teams that are playing, the uncertainty, knowing that, this team that is maybe lower rated than the team they're versing, they could actually beat them. So with having this playoffs in implemented, this can affect the viewership in a positive way, but also in a negative way, because maybe because NFL has so many teams in the NFL, it could shy away from the smaller teams that just never make the finals, and then always have these same teams in there.
And the English Premier League is obviously different. So, as Aaron was saying, in the NFL, they have playoffs, which means the good teams are always going to have extra games at the end of the season. Whereas in the English Premier League, every team plays the same amount of games, and then they just tally up the points at the end. Because of this, towards the end of the season, teams that are locked into like the middle of the table essentially have nothing to play for. They could go get smashed 10-0 and it wouldn't matter because they're already locked. They're not fighting for anything. But that is a negative. But on the positive side, teams that are fighting for places in European competitions to win the title, and then on the other side of the spectrum, teams are trying to escape relegation. Whereas in the NFL, they don't have relegation, they have franchises, so that the teams, regardless of what they finish, will be back in the league next year. In England, they have to fight for their spots. So even though there are some games that don't really create any hype because they're not really important, there are a lot of games that still are very important for the clubs that are still fighting for those places. And it leads to higher viewership for those games, even if they feature a team that is locked in the middle of the table.
So in concluding comments, the differences between the NFL and the EPL are quite different, but there's obviously some similarities. NFL has a variety of networks, while EPL just has a subscription service which is based on one company. There's also the differences of the viewership and also the quality and the uncertainty of the matches, which can affect those.
So as we've said before, the EPL is largely broadcast through one company, but there are smaller companies that do broadcast a handful of games every season. This is really inconsistent for viewers, and I think it would be a lot better if the English Premier League were to just give all the games to Sky Sports instead of giving them like an 80% split. I think it would be a lot more consistent for viewers, and I think it's just easier for them to subscribe to one company. And I also think that the companies that do have the broadcasting rights should think about broadcasting a few free-to-air games every season, every week, because it would attract more neutral viewers and would overall gain them more subscribers in the long run.
Yeah, so with the NFL, there's been some recent studies which have a decline in viewership, and this is based on the quality of the matches. So to potentially increase those viewerships and stop the decline, the NFL could look at reducing the size of the competition. Having this would allow less teams but more people to support a certain team. But obviously that wouldn't work if the teams weren't in quality. Having these strong teams that get great viewership would be beneficial. So reducing it to a certain amount of numbers gives the fans that were supporting the lower teams to come and support a different team to bring it more compact instead of it being quite open. Also, just with the NFL, I feel like they should branch out into subscription TV services. Due to the younger generation being on devices all the time, there's so many ways that they can access games without, paying for it basically. So maybe getting the younger generation to interact on their phone with a subscription service, I feel like that would be quite beneficial. But other than that, I think we're done here, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.